Live from Mexico City, welcome our moderator, the Hunger Project Mexico's country director, Montse Salazar Gamboa.
Hola. Hola. Perfect. Hola, these past 18, 19 months have been a great opportunity to design, adapt, and live new lives. Virtual meetings have crept into our daily lives, but this hybrid event is a really special and so well do it together tonight. Thank you very much, Cherie and team, for your leadership and highlighting the challenges we face to end hunger and poverty as humanity. The good news is that THP around the world not only believes in, we live our principles, we step it up to respond in this critical moment. It is clear that we are all in this together. I have your life in my hands and you have mine in yours. What affects one person anywhere affects everyone. Everywhere, we are one. I will walk through this journey to dive together on the impact that THP has during this pivotal moment for humanity and our planet, and how we can stand up for an inclusive and better future. Tonight, we are going to hear from my bold colleagues around the world, demonstrating our global interconnectedness from Bangladesh, India, Ghana, Malawi, and US. Let's do this together. We are one. Now, I am going to hand it over to Anne Slattery, that has the fortune to sit down with some of our colleagues earlier this week to hear more about how our community partners and Hunger Project teams from around the world have stepped up to respond to the challenge of our times, how to adapt and prepare for the future. Anna, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Montse. The other day, I had the opportunity to speak with some of our colleagues around the world about the Hunger Project's COVID response. In every country where we work, Hunger Project staff and community leaders worked tirelessly to ensure that information about preventing the spread of the virus reached everyone. Roland Coucha, our Global Vice President, has more. Hi, Roland. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much, Anna. My pleasure to be here.
Could you tell us a little bit about how the Hunger Project and our program countries adapted during the lockdown period and how we leveraged technology to ensure that we could reach everyone?
Great, thank you very much, Anna. First of all, let me step back a little bit and explain about what was our vision when the issue of COVID-19 came into the communities that we partner with on the ground. So standing in the social solidarity in the face of physical distancing, our vision for our program strategy on the ground was to have COVID-19 resilient communities everywhere we work. That means 14,000 villages where we work globally. And at the community level, that meant that reaching every last person with about 5 actions or 6 actions that were created and guided by our framework for action. Now, what are these 6 actions that really guided our work on the ground? First, it was awareness and understanding on how to stay safe. Promoting issues of hand washing, physical distancing, face covering in public places like putting on of masks, as well as debunking misinformation, which was very crucial in most parts of the communities we work with, especially in Africa. And then promoting acceptance of vaccines. The third one was to have access to the washing stations in every community that we work with. And the fourth was to be able to identify and isolate symptomatic residents and linking them to health officials where they could actually be supported for care. The fourth one was to ensure that there is access to relief for everyone who was in a dispute situation. And lastly, it was to promote community peace, trust, and solidarity. Now, I know that right now, as I'm talking like that, the question coming from you is, Roland, how was that possible? Considering the fact that even our own staff members, like it was with many other organizations, could not be able to travel to the communities in order to avoid rural to urban transmission. And that is where our uniqueness of the work of the Hunger Project comes from. You know, in Africa, we have the epicenter model. In India, we have the elected women representative model. In Bangladesh, we have the SDG union model. In Mexico, we have the SDG municipal model. These models, what they have done before 2020 was the training and establishment of about 500,000 people. 75% of them are women. These are community leaders on the ground who have a visible footprint in all those 14,000 villages that I spoke about, reaching about 16.5 million people on the ground. They are already trained in mindset change, behavioral change, reaching everyone on the ground. They are already trained in not viewing things as victims, but as leaders. So not operating from the victim mindset, but from the leadership mindset. Now, while we saw that many NGOs on the ground, and I say that really respectively, on the ground were struggling to set up structures on the ground in order to respond to COVID-19, for us, with these three to be able to respond and fulfill this vision of having a COVID-19 resilient community in every area we work with. Now, I know for that for some of the people, some of you, our dear investors who have been investing in the Hunger Project for many years, right now you're asking me, or you're asking yourself in your hearts and saying, Roland, but were we able to have any epicenter in Africa reach self-reliance during the period of COVID-19? I have good news for you, and definitely you need to hear this as I close. Sorry for that long explanation, Anna. You know, our program Resilience and Adaptability stood the test. The community leadership was not only visible in prevention, impact mitigation, or awareness and acceptability of COVID-19 vaccine. But guess what? Who could have imagined that within COVID-19 period, we had 7 epicenters in Africa reach self-reliance in the year 2020 and 2021, with a total population of about 105,000 people being able to stand on their 2 feet and declare themselves self-reliant. That's how the program, and that's how our Hunger Project was able to empower communities on the ground to respond powerfully to the pandemic. And we have now realized that the structure, social structure that we were supporting to build for the end of hunger and poverty is actually well positioned to respond to any type of pandemic, including a health crisis like the one that we are facing right now. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Roland. Now, let's hear from Badil Alam Mujamdar, Vice President and our Country Director in Bangladesh, to understand how THP approached COVID response there.
One of our great poets, Rabindranath Tagore, the Nobel laureate, once wrote, "The fear of poverty is like fear of ghost. When you are alone, it incapacitates you. But when you are with others, you are in a group, the fear of ghost goes away." And he said that poverty is like that. It's like fear of ghost. When you are alone, you are acting alone, then it really incapacitates you. You do not easily get out of the poverty and hunger. When you work together, work shoulder to shoulder, then the fear of poverty, fear of hunger goes away. In fact, in countries like ours, there is great dearth of capital, financial capital. When people come together, work together, then another kind of capital is created, what we call social capital. This is the result of sort of a magic that happens. When people work together, when people get interconnected and they work with each other. This magic is social capital. And in societies like ours, where financial capital is scarce, the social capital can make up for the dearth of financial capital. And through social capital, people coming together, getting interconnected, they can foment social movement or social resistance. And lot of problems, lot of challenges relating to poverty and hunger can be addressed, can be remedied through social movement and social resistance. In recent time, during this COVID pandemic, we had a very successful program, Corona Resilient Village Initiative. The essential realization behind this initiative is we are in it together. We'll have to protect each one so that everyone is protected against COVID infection. In other words, we are one and we'll have to work together. Realization that we are in it together, we are one. That really helped us having a very successful program, face this coronavirus pandemic very effectively.
Hi, Irene. Could you share a little bit more detail about THP's response in Uganda?
So we were working remotely. None of our teams were in the communities working with the animators, but the animators took leadership. And every voice that was in the community was like, you people, this is a war. We have an obstacle. We have a challenge. We have to come together. What are you doing at individual level? What can we do as a community? What can we do as a nation? And we saw our animators and community participating at all those different levels. The animators and the epicenter committee were part of the COVID response team at the district level. They're the ones that were distributing, leaflets and moving around with megaphones, trying to mobilize communities and sensitize them about what they need to do about safeguarding themselves. We saw the community, the epicenter itself, as turning out as a demonstration site. What can we do to be able to do this? So whatever was being demonstrated at the epicenter had to be replicated at the community level. And the community, so when you visit the community now and ask them, what have you learned from this? We're like, you know what? We have the power. And with this, we are continuing our efforts now to continue with the vaccination awareness, because there is still some stigma around the vaccine. Of course, they're hearing about, AstraZeneca, the side effects and all these. So they're preferring maybe the Johnson, but we're like, you know what? There's scientific research has been done. These vaccines are most ideal given different temperature environments within the different parts of the world. And of course, a lot of information about the efficacy of the AstraZeneca vaccine among the Africans. So we have to embrace it and we have to work on that mindset shift. And slowly by slowly, the numbers are increasing. So many of the community partners are actually turning up. And all this is because of our joint effort as civil society to really also show our leadership in this whole war of the corona pandemic.
One of the most significant concerns with the lockdowns was the increase in gender-based and domestic violence. How did that manifest in India? And how did the elected women leaders manage that within their constituencies?
In India, like in other parts of the world, we did see an unprecedented spike in gender-based violence. And this is particularly so during the second COVID wave, which took place this year. And at a time when India was registering almost 400,000 COVID cases on a daily basis, the government response was focused more on management of the health dimensions of the pandemic. And somewhere the issue of gender-based violence hasn't really received adequate attention. So just to share an example with you, the Commission for Protection of Child Rights in India estimates that between April 2020 and August this year, about 8,000 children have been orphaned. Over 92,000 children have lost one parent. And many of these, of course, are girls who face even higher vulnerabilities. So we can well imagine the magnitude of neglect, of abuse, of exploitation that these children are exposed to. And yes, the elected women have played a tremendous role amidst these extremely trying circumstances in addressing the issue. And this has been possible primarily, I think, for two reasons. Firstly, because they are located in their very own constituencies, they're very well positioned to identify women and children who are vulnerable. And secondly, by virtue of them being public office holders, they're very well positioned to raise these issues and ensure that appropriate action is taken. So during this time, we witnessed that elected women, despite the challenges of the circumstances that they found themselves in, they've kept an eye out for incidences of child marriage, domestic violence, trafficking, and have taken steps to address these. So in the last 4 months alone, the elected women that the Hunger Project works with have in India facilitated over 800 cases, the registration of over 800 cases of domestic violence, of child marriage, of child abuse on government helplines for women and children. And over 600 children who've lost their parents have been linked to various kinds of social protection schemes, to compensation that the government is providing for these children during this time. So yes, the elected women have really risen to the occasion. And to give you a glimpse into the work that the elected women are doing during the pandemic, I'd like to leave you with a clip of Jamuna, an elected woman from the state of Odisha, who ensured that right at the very beginning of the pandemic, citizens in her constituency had access to accurate information about COVID, which is so very critical. And by doing so, ensure that effective management of the pandemic is done at the very local level.
The number of cases has crossed the 10,000 mark.
पूरे हिंदुस्तान में लॉकडाउन लागू हो चुका है। ओडिशा रे प्रथम कोरोना आक्रांत चिन्हट हेबा परे स्थिति सेतेटा भी नियंत्रण को आसिला।
डर लागुथिला जो मोर छुआटा थिला जतोला मो कोरोना हेले मो कार सेवा कर पारिबि नै ए डरटा मते रहिथिला से डर मते थिला साहस मते थिला कोरोना भाइरस को हराइबा गोटे थोर तो समस्त जाय बुझे कहबाटा समय मिल नथिला हमको सेतबे माइक सेट रे 2-3 थर मिति अनाउंस करथु सब प्रत्येक गां जाई बुली कोइ रेकॉर्डिंग चारटा कोविड सेंटर खोला जाइतला पंचायत रे भद्र व्यक्ति मानु डाकी पंचायत रे मीटिंग करथली आशा आंगनवाड़ी मीटिंग करथली किछटा साहाय्य कला
स्ट्रांग लीडरशिप तो बहुत मेन इंपोर्टेंस अच्छी लोकों मध्य मिसकनसेप्शन जोटा रोचे फास्ट सेटा दूर करिया पड़ुचे
Thank you, Anna. And thank you to all my colleagues who sat down with her this week to keep us updated for our work. It always makes me so proud when I hear about how the Hunger Project responded to the challenge of COVID. The way our community partners around the world have stepped forward is so inspiring. Of course, it wasn't just our programmatic work that had to pivot. When schools around the world transitioned to online learning, our students partners active with Feel Good, a youth-led movement to end the hunger, had to adapt how they operate. Hola, Chloe.
Hi, Montse. Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. For those of you I have not met yet, my name is Chloe Kund, and I am the head of the Feel Good program for the Hunger Project.
Thank you, Chloe.
Oh, thank you. Feel Good is a youth-led movement of college students committed to the end of hunger. On campuses across North America, students operate social enterprises. Oftentimes, those are grilled cheese delis, and invest 100% of their proceeds into the Hunger Project. Not only are they raising money, but they're also raising awareness for the end of hunger. As a rising generation, this is essential to our work. In the process, students are also gaining critical leadership, teamwork, and business skills that will continue to serve them throughout their lives. The impact of COVID-19 demanded a new lens to consider what's missing, a question that is not strange to Hunger Project methodology. It's always been true that our Feel Good chapters are most successful when we can connect as a movement. Our power lives in our extraordinary community, working in partnership together. That community spirit has continued to persevere through these challenging times, as you've heard in the room. Feel Good students were presented with an opportunity to get creative and innovative, discovering new ways to connect on their campuses, to work and raise money for the Hunger Project. At the movement level, our students connected online with our series Together Tuesdays, also Little Cheese on the Screen, a Spark Tank Innovation Challenge, Move to End Hunger, and an anti-racist leadership workshop. It was a busy year. On the chapter level, in the face of challenge, restriction, and fatigue, including Zoom fatigue, students remained resilient. Joining me on stage this evening is Caitlin. Caitlin is a junior at the University of Vermont and a member of her chapter. Yes, give it up for Caitlin. Caitlin is also a member of the leadership team at the University of Vermont for her chapter. She was also a former THP intern. Caitlin, could you please describe how your chapter adapted to the new landscape and what compelled you to continue connecting and fundraising for the end of hunger?
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. When it became clear that the pandemic was going to drastically alter our school year, we knew that we had to find a way to continue to keep our chapter and deli alive. To set the scene for everyone, UVM had students return to campus with a mix of hybrid, in-person, and fully remote classes. However, most classes were fully remote. People that lived on campus weren't allowed to have any guests in their dorm rooms, which made it a really isolating semester. For me personally, being able to connect with my friends in Feel Good and the community as a whole helped me regain a sense of normalcy. Over the summer, our chapter executive team developed a reopening plan, which was approved by the university. Our deli had to undergo some big changes, like we were no longer allowed to have volunteers. All of our officers had to go through extra COVID training. We had plexiglass at our deli, and we took all of our orders online. Because of online classes, we got a lot less foot traffic at the deli, meaning that we weren't able to fundraise as much money there. We knew that it was really important for us to continue to fundraise for THP because the program countries were being hit really hard by COVID. We wanted to do our part. Our chapter got innovative, and we started a care package program for Valentine's Day and finals. We were able to have people donate to send a care package to somebody at the university that was filled with snacks and things from local Vermont businesses. We were able to fundraise for THP, connect with our Vermont community, and spread some joy on campus. We also knew that it was super important to keep our chapter community alive. When the weather was nice, we held outdoor tie-dye events that were really well attended, were really fun, and helped us recruit new members. We also continued having online leadership and general meetings. I know for myself, it really helped me get through this year to be able to connect with my community every week. I'm really proud of the way that our chapter and countless others were able to adapt during these challenging times. Thank you.
Gracias, Chloe and Caitlin. Gracias to be with us, and I am so grateful to have you as a key partner. Thank you. I honestly believe that the essence of the youth is revolutionary, compromised, and generous in the same portion of the amount of the energy all of you have. There is no need to talk about all the challenges that we will face over almost 2 years. COVID turned the whole world upside down without any doubt. However, our programs have remained creative and focused beyond the pandemic. We looked ahead with one question in our heads. What is missing to end the hunger in this new context? Two major challenges came to light for THP: climate change and the lack of access to connectivity. Anna spoke with our colleagues, Grace and Stephanie, about THP works on these two major issues. Anna, the floor is yours.
At the Hunger Project, we're working with communities to develop resilience to climate change-driven environmental shocks, including droughts and floods. And we are working with them to develop alternative practices to reduce the community's contribution to climate change. The other day, Grace in Malawi shared about what this looks like on the ground.
Climate change has affected most of our impact areas in Malawi. For example, we work in Chikwawa. Chikwawa is flood-prone area, and sometimes it is also drought. It also gets very dry and sometimes prolonged droughts in the area. And because of that, it is very challenging to work with the partners as we anticipated area, and it requires us to be innovative and adjust our approaches to making sure that our partners are resilient to the effects of these climate change occurrences. So when there is too much floods happening in the area, what it means is that sometimes their houses are washed away, and also their crops are washed, the livestock are also washed. So what we do with the community is that after the floods have subsidized, we work with them to use residual moisture and also to help them do some water harvesting in order for them to make sure that they have a source from where they can do irrigation farming, because their crops have been washed and they cannot depend on rain-fed agriculture. We need to have an alternative for them to still grow crops and have food in their households. So we work with them on irrigation interventions, and they do cultivate using those schemes. So they mobilize themselves as groups and do these irrigation farming as a group. And besides that, we are also trying to work with the community, because we know that climate change is is waste because of also careless cutting of trees. So we're working with the communities to do tree planting. So they're planting these trees in their homes, at the epicenter premises, and creating wood roads, and also allowing the trees to regenerate in their natural environment. We are also working in partnership with African Parks Majete. So we try to also help the communities grow crops, but also grow plants which would cover the, with vegetative cover to recover the soil where they're growing crops. So it is like a way of controlling soil erosion. When there is so much flood, we still have these plants preventing soil erosion and making sure that our soils are still rich in terms of soil fertility.
Great, thank you. And what do you find inspiring about the work our community partners are doing to preserve their environment?
It is very inspiring to see the commitment from the communities that we are working with. Our partners are so committed. It's one thing to grow a tree, and it is another thing to take care of that tree and see it grow.
As Montse hinted at, a lack of meaningful access to online resources is preventing millions of people, particularly women, from being active and informed participants in our digital society. I had the chance to catch up with Stephanie, my colleague in Ghana, who is leading an exciting new pilot project that is aimed at reducing the barriers many face to meaningful access to the internet. Let's hear more. Hi, Stephanie. It's so good to catch you between epicenter visits.
Hi, Anna.
So, as you and I both know, COVID has really revealed the importance of internet access and the barriers that many face to meaningfully access online resources. THP Ghana is piloting a new program to address this. Can you tell us about it?
Okay, I would love to tell you about it. So this partnership it's a multi-stakeholder partnership between THP Ghana, Bluetown, and Microsoft and USAID. So let me just give you a bit of the basis of the partnership. So USAID and Microsoft, and then the Digital Frontiers, their main aim is to help close the digital divide and bring high-speed internet connectivity to people in the local area, that is a rural community. And Bluetown is also a private rural internet and content service provider that seeks to connect the unconnected in the rural community. And THP is leveraging upon its extensive experience in community mobilization, the usage of the epicenter strategy, women empowerment model, and we are collaborating to bring meaningful access to people in the rural communities. And this project has actually made available ICT centers in 3 of the project communities, that is Akwede, Adopanta, and Suprisu. So currently an ICT center with free Wi-Fi have been set up in the 3 communities with, and then we have trained animators, 2 animators each, who are managing the ICT and equally guiding women in the target group to take up the usage of internet and also build digital skills that will help them to improve upon their entrepreneurial skills and employable skills. Okay, so under the project, we have made available the sale of affordable smartphones with flexible terms of payment for women, especially in the community, so that will help bridge the gender digital divide and also promote internet usage on the phones. And then THP has its famous Women Empowerment Training Manual digitized in the local language for easy comprehension by the community partners.
Thank you, Anna, again. Stephanie and Grace gave us 2 kinds of responses to the 2 cross-cutting dimensions of poverty and hunger. Two issues that, if not addressed structurally, will intensify in the communities, heightening the inequalities and the vulnerabilities on the planet. All that happens in the field must be connected with a big scale scenario to end hunger and poverty. Enabling the environment to sustain the grassroots changes demand structural and systemic changes, but how to do it in pandemic times? Following from what Stephanie spoke about connectivity, in Mexico, we have been able to leverage technology to support the part of our mission that it's about the widespread adoption. This is a scenario we took two big decisions to keep moving forward to have a rural and indigenous Mexico free from hunger and extreme poverty. We decided to be bridge builders, bridges that connect community partners with their local authorities to the local development. And two, unleash our leadership role to play an effective partnership with the Mexican government, despite the total rejection of the current administration to the civil organization. If you allow me, I want to share briefly some of our strategic actions. We launched and we were part of more than 100 virtual conversations to transform mindset at all levels: political, functionary training, civic public engagement, stakeholders, and private sector, to dive deeper into the power structures and how to improve their actions to handle, legislate, and govern by community-led development approach. Another huge priority for us was addressing women's leadership, participatory citizenship, economic recovery, climate change, as well as agroecology and food sovereignty as a vital axis of prioritizing long-term views on local development in global and regional high-level conferences. And last but not least, we have been spearheading to influence the closest level of the governance of the people, the subnational level, by positioning gender-focused community-led development with human rights approach in the local congresses and in the municipal development plans. All these strategic actions were inspired by my wonderful colleague and hermano, John. Hola, John.
I'm John Coonrod, and I coordinate the movement for community-led development.
Hi, John. Let me ask you something.
What is community-led development? Community-led development is the umbrella term that describes the work of the Hunger Project. Whether it's the epicenters in Africa, the work with the elected women in India, the SDG unions in Bangladesh, or the cooperatives that we saw in Mexico, these are all outstanding examples of methodologies for community-led development. So community-led development is the process of working together to achieve locally owned visions and goals. It requires a real shift in power from top-down donor-led projects to real systemic change that puts power in the hands of people, of women, of youth, of people with disabilities, of marginalized groups, so that they are in charge of their own lives and destiny. It realizes the power, the promise, the possibility that exists in every community. Now, to quote Suzanne Frint, CLD, community-led development, is what the Hunger Project does, and we mobilize the world to do CLD. That's the purpose of the movement. So the movement comprises 74 international organizations that you've probably heard of, like World Vision, CARE, Save the Children, as well as 1,500 community-based organizations. Now, when COVID broke out and organizations that used outside experts pulled those experts out of communities, those community leaders in those communities stepped forward to protect their neighbors. And hundreds of them turned to the movement as a platform for accurate information and to have collective voice with their own governments. Now, the frontline work of the movement is in each country in what we call country chapters. And one of the breakthroughs during this COVID period has been that chapters have formed in countries where there are no Hunger Project staff. Countries like Sierra Leone and Nigeria, the biggest country in all of Africa. And also the revitalization of our chapter in Kenya. Now, Kenya is particularly exciting because it's the only country in Africa that has really adopted policies in its constitution that support community-led development. They have guaranteed that 20% of their national budget goes directly to local counties. One of those counties, Makwene County, is very clear that making community-led development work requires transforming the mindset of both citizens and government officials. And so to achieve that, they have signed an agreement with our chapter just 2 weeks ago to take the methodology pioneered in THP Mexico that established a school for community-led development and adapt that into Kenya. More counties are already interested in joining, and Makwene wants to be a beacon of hope for all the counties in Kenya. Another huge breakthrough has been our collaborative research headed by Gunjan Veda, who you're about to meet in a few moments. This Gunjan mobilized 35 professional researchers from 23 of our member organizations to do an in-depth assessment and analysis of more than 173 community-led development projects. They launched their first wave of results with our Africa Prize laureate, former president of Malawi, Joyce Banda, in January. And then just the other week, their second wave of results with Ambassador Donald Steinberg, the expert advisor on localization to USAID. Now, USAID, the largest development funder in the world, has been falling in love with the Hunger Project because of this collaborative way of working. And in fact, just 3 days ago, we received notice that this research program of the Movement for Community-Led Development has received the USAID award for one of the best practices in collaborative learning and adaptation. So I hope that you will all go home and go to the mcld.org website and really immerse yourself in the power of the influence that you're able to have through this movement that you're so interconnected to. Thank you very much, and back to you, Montse.
Thank you, John. Now you understand how we were inspired by John's work, right? Thanks again, John. Currently, one of our big conversations happening in the development sector is about decolonization development. Community-led development and the strengthening of community-based organization are just a part of that. Tonight, we have the opportunity to have a wise and beautiful woman right here and now to talk a little bit about it. Hola, Gunjan.
Hi, Montse.
Hi. Let me ask you about this. What does decolonizing development mean to you? And what is the next step?
That's a tall one, right? Decolonizing development. But let me start with a little story. So I come from India, and some of you may know, Sherry alluded to it actually initially this evening, that in India we have an insidious caste system. It's a division of society based on occupation, only this is hereditary. Now, what this means is that large portions of the population are subject to daily rituals of discrimination, deprivation, humiliation, violence, atrocities you can't imagine, simply because they're born into particular households. So 6 years ago, I was writing a book on the contribution of Dalit communities. So Dalits is the term by which these marginalized groups identify themselves in India. And as I went from village to village, town to town, I realized there was one ubiquitous symbol of this discrimination, and that was this teacup. So all across India, households have a separate set of utensils for people who help with household chores, who traditionally belong to certain communities. Now, the urban myth is hygiene, right? That people from impoverished sections don't have access to soap, running water, etc. But the genesis of this is in the caste system, which said that some groups of people are so impure that their very touch would pollute. And so you need separate utensils. 6 years ago, when I realized this, it shook my world. Because I remembered the separate teacup that sat in my house. Now, I've been part of the women's movement, the human rights movement in India for over a decade, fighting all of this, to realize that I was perpetuating this, that I had not lived up to my values and principles. It shattered me. I went through the cycle of disbelief, denial, anger. I went home and I told my parents, how could you do this? And they were shocked. They were like, what's this got to do with caste? But then my mother did something that I'll never forget. She went into the kitchen, picked up that cup, threw it in the dustbin, and then she looked at me and said, I'm sorry we did not question this. I'm sorry we taught you this. I cannot undo the past, but from here and now, there will be no separate utensils. The thing is, colonialism, racism, casteism, they've permeated our lives so much that we don't even realize that there are these innocent looking teacups sitting in our homes, which are, abetting and aiding these very problems that we are fighting, right? And it's everywhere. It's not just the way we work, the top-down models of who is designing programs, who is deciding them. It's the way we think. Whose knowledge do we value? Who do we call experts? It's the terms we use, beneficiaries. I know the Hunger Project doesn't use it, but so many around the world do use that term, So if we really want to shift the power, if we believe in human dignity, then institutional change is not going to be enough. Because what are institutions if not made of individuals? What is the Hunger Project if not the sum total of you and me and every one of our colleagues in the field, the investors and others who've been part of this journey? And so if we really want to shift the power in decolonized development, we have to recognize that teacup that sits in our houses and shatter it, because it's not easy. It's very painful. I can tell you, you will want to lash out. I know I did, but we have to remember, we may not be able to undo the past, but we can change from here and now. If we really believe that we are one in interconnectedness, then we have to share the space and the power. We have to believe that people who may not have the same degrees, the same language skills, the same overseas experience as us, know better than what we know about what their communities need. It's not easy, but in the Hunger Project, we know it's possible. We heard Sherry talk about Pune. We heard from Tim, from Rollins, from colleagues around the world about what mindset transformation can do. John talked about the collaborative research team. There's an example of individuals changing not just their own organizations, but the biggest agency in the world, right? For too long, development has been about speaking for people. The time has come for us to step back, to let communities and people speak for themselves, and to realize that their voices are powerful, they are strong, they matter. If we want to decolonize development, then shift the power has to begin with each one of us shattering that teacup. Thank you, Montse.
Thank you, Gunjan. Thank you, really, thank you. I truly also start with each of us. Even if you are in the development field, you can be part of this movement. By being here tonight, you are a part of it. Thank you, everyone.